Can you just give us a brief introduction about yourself?
Okay. Okay, my name is Steve Black. Today we're talking about I Ate Tiong Bahru, which is my latest writing project. I've written 4 or 5 books. I also work in art. I do video, photography, some conceptual art things. I'm an American. I've been in Singapore since 2002. I lived in New York, Paris, Hong Kong, and Tokyo.
Okay. So how long have you been writing, or how did you start?
Well, my father was a book salesman, so I grew up surrounded by books. I've always liked writing. I've always liked English. Always wrote little things, sometimes for magazines, sometimes for newspapers, essays, but it wasn't until about 2008 that I decided it's time to actually try writing a book, which is very, very different.
Okay. Did something happen in 2008?
Well, I was very interested in a man by the name of Barack Obama.
Okay.
And so I started to write about Barack Obama, and so Barack Obama, a collection of ideas and stories about Barack Obama, and at the same time, in 2008, the ebook world I thought was starting to become stable. I think Kindles came out in 2007, and if you were looking at the future, you could see that mobile phones and mobile applications were going to make it easier to try and get ebooks in front of people. So I thought, okay, if I'm going to do it, I have to start. So I did a book about Obama, and in the beginning it's always learning. So I'm hopefully made so many mistakes that now I'm starting to understand how ebooks work, and more importantly, how the marketing works. It's one thing to be a writer and to pursue the art of writing. It's another thing to sell a book.
Okay, so what inspired you to write I Ate Tiong Bahru?
The book before I Ate Tiong Bahru was called Contact with Shadow, and that involved Singapore's printing history, and very specifically the area of Armenian Street in Fort Canning. So I realized that I enjoyed history, and then I moved to Tiong Bahru and was very interested in the history of it, and the opportunity to write a book presented itself, and I started to work towards making a photo book about Tiong Bahru, with essays being a complement to the photos. And eventually the cost and the complications involved in making a photo book were too much, and I just decided, okay, now I'll write a collection of essays, and that's how I Ate Tiong Bahru was born. There is a sequel in the works. Hopefully within the next 18 months it'll be ready.
Okay, great. So how do you get about getting published?
In this case it was self-published. I would of course be happy to talk to a publisher, but in this case I just thought it's more efficient to try and do it myself. Again, we were talking about ebook marketing, and I thought with the ebook marketing and the physical book marketing, it's better in this case to try and do it myself rather than wait for a publisher to produce some results 2 or 3 years down the road. Also very lucky to know people at Books Actually, and because they're in Tiong Bahru and the book's about Tiong Bahru, there was a nice match there. So they're a big part of the equation, Books Actually.
Okay. So can you tell us some of your marketing tips, or how to...
Marketing, I'm a bad person to speak to because I've decided not to do any marketing. Marketing is a full-time job in my opinion, and unless you've got a team or you're committed to spending a lot of time towards marketing, it's counterproductive to your life as a writer. In my opinion, I want to have 8 books ready. Then I'm marketing a brand, or I'm marketing a collection of books which may or may not be thematically but they're related to me as the author. They could be about America, they could be about science fiction, they could be about cooking, but because my name is consistent to all of them, hopefully when I do marketing, it makes sense. To put all the time and energy into one book, for one person to do that, it's really a big gamble. Having said that, it depends on your subject matter. If you're doing something like a guide to Tiong Bahru, it's different because then you have a concrete product. My books are cross-genre. I Ate Tiong Bahru is fact-based fiction, or something called lyrical documentary. So that's different. Again, for marketing, what I do, it's very time consuming. But if you're doing a guide or something simple to understand, a mystery or detective story, it might make sense to market. But ask me after I finish 3 books about marketing.
Okay, great. What are your plans for the future?
What I'm working on now is a book about Bali Way of Ghost. After that, I may do my Part 2 Tiong Bahru book, the sequel to I Ate Tiong Bahru. Or another Singapore-related book project is called Big Homer, and that's set in the 1980s, and that's about a pigeon that travels from one end of Singapore to the others and spends a lot of time in the old Bugis.
Okay, maybe one last question. What tips do you have for aspiring writers?
Just keep writing. There's no shortcut. And your first drafts will probably be terrible, and that's a good thing. You really, if you think your first draft is good, it's probably not very good, because you have to surprise yourself. There's an expression: if there's no surprise for the author, there's no surprise for the reader. If you're writing for a newspaper or magazine, you have a short deadline, your first draft has to be good. But if you're trying to work with the art of writing and to really write a rich piece of text, you have to be open to experimentation and to see what happens once you start writing. So bottom line is just to keep writing.
Okay, thank you so much, Steve.